Earlier this month, I attended an event concerning the Safe Schools program being implemented in schools across Australia. Safe Schools was founded by hardcore Marxists and picked up by the government, and the plan is for the program to be compulsory in all Victorian public schools by 2018, with private and independent schools strongly encouraged to conform as well. If you follow me on Twitter, you will have seen me tweet about this event, but I wanted to share that here for ease of access. All the sources linked on screen are clickable in the description below, so please be sure to check those out. 9th of May 2017, 5 PM. About 2 hours from now, I'll be tweeting from an interesting event about safe schools and gender ideology being taught to kids. Don't miss it. Description: why is it that parents all over the country are deeply concerned by the content of the so-called Safe Schools program? Is gender theory safe for children? Are there deeper ideological agendas at play? With the Victorian Andrews government set to mandate safe schools, we wanted to provide an opportunity for you to hear from some experts. Join us for an information evening with Dr. John Whitehall and Dr. Elizabeth Taylor as they help us understand the consequences of teaching contested gender ideology to our kids. John Whitehall is a Doctor of General Paediatrics at the University of Western Sydney. He has 50 years of experience in research and related fields. Dr. Whitehall has been raising awareness of the negative health impacts of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and gender reassignment surgery as treatments for children with identity dysphoria. Dr. Elizabeth Taylor, Director of Research at the Australian Christian Lobby, will present her research about the ideology behind safe schools. Copies of her paper will be available on the night. Ample time will be provided for you to ask questions. 7:12 PM. Change of plans. No phone reception or Wi-Fi at the venue. Might make a video later. Have a good night. 10:09 PM. Home from the event. Around 100 people went home before it started because they couldn't enter the building due to protesters blocking the entrance. Police were there and said that since the protesters were threatening violence, they wouldn't intervene to protect their officers. When those of us who were able to attend left at the end, the police insisted on us walking one way out of the building and taking unlit back streets toward our cars rather than allowing us to walk the opposite way up the street, because reasons? Of course, this was entirely pointless since they'd already stated that they wouldn't intervene if things got violent. Some protesters held signs saying, "You are killing us," while smoking cigarettes and weighing hundreds of kilograms, lols. First speaker was Dr. Elizabeth Taylor, who has conducted in-depth research on the Safe Schools program and its ideological underpinnings. I highly recommend you read her report here. Started by asking, how would you define the difference between a man and a woman? In a Victorian school today, you'd be told you're wrong. Introduced concepts like heteronormativity, inclusion, gender versus sex, and the left's definition of homophobia and transphobia. If you're extremely confused at the end of this, that's not necessarily a sign that you've misunderstood it. Haha, accurate. Showed how presenting gender, sexuality, or sex as a spectrum implies to children that the vast majority of people are in the middle, confusing to kids. Think they're abnormal if they fall at the far end of the spectrum. Turns people who are just a man or just a woman into the extreme. After introducing the key concepts taught by Safe Schools, she discussed the way the program insists on a whole school approach, which means this stuff isn't confined to sex ed. Also stuff like what dorm kids sleep in on camps and what holidays are celebrated, e.g. Pride Month. Most disturbingly of all, LGBT content is not allowed to be blocked by school internet firewalls, often including extremely pornographic content. As a lot of us already know, the Safe Schools website points students to sites which advertise sadomasochistic sex clubs, etc. Talked about the common shaming tactics employed against kids who don't buy into this stuff. One common activity is to draw a line on the carpet, a spectrum from agree to disagree, and give kids statements like, gender-fluid kids are probably just confused. Then kids must stand where they fall on agree to disagree. Kids with the wrong answer are forced to explain their position. They then often get in trouble for bullying, when they have just been publicly shamed for their very valid opinions by adults. Meanwhile, schools are not allowed to use terms like girls and boys because it might cause unnecessary distress to trans kids. Safe Schools Guide urges teachers to use their duty of care to proceed with kids' transitions without parental consent if necessary. For example, it says here, ensure a student-led process. The person who understands most about their gender transition or affirmation is the student themselves. It is crucial to the success of this process that they are included in every decision made and every action taken. Consideration should be given to the age and maturity of the student and whether it would be appropriate to involve the student's parents or guardians in each decision. Assess the support given by a student's family members or carers, and think through the needs of any siblings, especially those attending the same school. If a student does not have family or carer support for the process, a decision to proceed should be made based on the school's duty of care for the student's well-being and their level of maturity to make decisions about their needs. It may be possible to consider a student a mature minor and be able to make decisions without parental consent. That's from the safeschoolscoalition.org.au. Some strong-minded children may be able to challenge this teaching, but let's face it, this is a task that's eluded even our government. Question Time was full of concerned parents describing the experiences of their children in these programs, including one 10-year-old who began experiencing severe mental distress and self-harming. It was eventually found that she'd accessed hardcore BDSM pornography while doing a school project. Another had spoken to her GP about what was going on at school, and the GP couldn't believe it. Most doctors don't know about this. The second speaker of the evening was Dr. John Whitehall, a paediatrician with 50 years' experience in the field. He talked about childhood gender dysphoria. This has blown into a dangerous trend, a dangerous fad, fueled by the media and directed by ideologues. He described the phases of transition. 1. Social transition. 2. Puberty blockers. 3. Hormone treatment. 4. Surgery. Every stage carries risks that parents aren't being told about. In fact, new legislation in Victoria makes it illegal to tell parents about the risks, because it's considered a form of conversion therapy. It's also illegal to state that 90% of kids with dysphoria find it correct on its own. Doctors are afraid to speak out because their entire career will be ruined and their reputation destroyed. Kids are being harmed in the name of this, and doctors are complicit. He explained some studies on the risks associated with puberty blockers, and no, they're not just entirely safe and entirely reversible. And hormones, which I won't go into here because I'm not a doctor and I don't want to give you the wrong information. I do advise you to look it up though. He's written for Quadrant magazine a couple of times in the last year, focusing on the legal complexity of all this. He talked a lot about that too. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so the laws, cases, and studies he cites no doubt have quite particular language, and I don't want to mess it up or mislead anyone. He focused a lot on how this is being done to children, and it is a serious form of abuse, unethical both medically and legally, and described how the gender ideologues have been courting doctors, hospitals, and judges with fancy black tie galas, etc. He ended on a defeated note. Where to from here? I don't know. We're losing. I don't know what to do as one single doctor. Anyway, that was about it. Afterwards heard a man of around 70 talking about his wife's job as a kindergarten teacher. 4 boys in her class who live as girls and are already in meetings with doctors to set the schedule for puberty blockers. They're all 4 years of age. Anyway, I highly recommend that you read Dr. Taylor's paper. It's all carefully cited. At the very least, have a look through the Safe Schools site to see what they're really teaching and what they themselves say that they're all about. This whole thing is sickening and maddening. None of this was new to me, but you could tell from the audible gasps of many that it was new to them. One final note. This was an event put on by Christians, and I'm very thankful for their work, but I wish there was more organising on this. It's disgusting that people think a tiny Christian or super conservative contingent is the only group opposed to this stuff. So please don't be afraid to speak out, whether you're religious or not. We need everyone. Oh, and I know this is all crazy dystopian and hard to believe, but it's also true. Please don't take my word for it. Look into it further. Oh, one other great quote from Dr. Elizabeth Taylor. We are now eroding kids' sexual boundaries in primary school. A child needs to be able to say, I am 10, and this is not appropriate for me. 10th of May 2017, 1:10 p.m. Story from The Australian about the event and protests last night. Safe Schools protest targets Arawan Swanston Hotel. A Melbourne hotel has been caught in the crossfire of debate about the contentious Safe Schools program. Arawan Swanston in Carlton had agreed to host an Australian Christian Lobby event tonight with speakers discussing safe schools and gender reassignment. Before the event, the hotel received harassing phone calls and online threats that called the ACL a hate group and condemned the business for associating with them. The campaign comes after several Christian groups were forced to cancel their reservation at a Sydney hotel last year following threats to their meeting about same-sex marriage. About 30 people blocked the entrance to the hotel tonight, forcing police to escort attendees through their makeshift cordon. The protest had started silently, armed only with signs, but turned into a war of words and accusations of assault. "Jesus might love you, but I don't," one protester shouted. "These people want us to die, they can get fucked," another said. The protesters, several of whom had their faces covered with bandanas, managed to keep the majority of the attendees out of the event. The ACL website promoted the evening as Dr. Whitehall and Dr. Taylor helping the public understand the consequences of teaching contested gender ideology to our kids. Transgender activist Reagan Bleachmore said Dr. Whitehall had advocated for the wait-and-see approach, where treatment was withheld from children with gender dysphoria. Then one of my followers, Social Justice Wizard, asked, "Is there a citation for this claim? Genuine question." Speaking specifically about the claim that there were links from the Safe Schools website towards pornography and sex workers and stuff like that. So I said, the source was the site itself, but George Christensen has talked about this in Parliament, with a link to this video here.
Some of the things that the Safe Schools Coalition Australia are recommending to school students include pornographic web content, sex shops, adult online communities and sex clubs. The Safe Schools All of Us teaching resource directs students to the LGBT organisation 2010. On the 19th of January this year, 2010 hosted a hands-on workshop for youth on sex toys and sadomasochistic practices. -18 links to The Tool Shed, an online pornographic sex shop offering a range of sex toys, sadomasochistic items and pornography. -18 recommends Scarletine, a teen sex advice site that promotes group sex, sex toys and sadomasochism. -18 is an event partner with Melbourne Gay Bar, the GH Hotel, which features erotic homosexual entertainment. Safe Schools recommends the transgender organisation Seahorse Club Victoria, which in turn recommends the fetish Abode Club. Abode is located at the same address as the Parlour Lounge Sex Club, which provides sadomasochistic entertainment and rooms for sex. These links to sexually explicit web content and external organisations of an adult or erotic nature raise serious concerns about child safety. Further, Safe Schools provides instructions to children on how to hide their internet browsing history. It advises them to ask for restricted websites that are blocked at school and would be blocked at home to be unblocked by their teachers without parental knowledge.
I added, and an independent review funded by the government agrees that this is a problem, which is impressive because they basically backed the program 100%. This document says, Standout provides a list of websites, many of which are network partners' websites, and suggests that students check and, if necessary, ask why the school firewall blocks access to any of these websites. With the exception of the official resources on the SSCA website, that's the Safe Schools Coalition website, these websites are not designed as school resources, and they may contain third-party links that are not suitable for young children or for use in schools without direct adult supervision. Then their findings listed that guidance should be provided about the potential content of websites listed in Standout, but not designed for school use, and third-party links or material that may appear on these websites. I've provided links to that document and to other papers on this issue below. One of my followers, Lex Williams, said, "Thank you so much for this. What can any of us do to stop these children from being monumentally fucked up?" My response to that was, I honestly don't think we can do much, except keep making people aware of what's happening. I think it's going to take a generation of kids to grow up and speak out about how much it damaged them before most people will listen or care. But I hope that I'm wrong. So I just wanted to put this all in a video and pop this on my channel for people who don't follow me on Twitter or for people who are looking for this later and don't want to troll back through my Twitter to try and find it. I've also put a link in the description to a Storify version of this where you can just see it all written without actually having to hear me read it out. And of course I've included links to everything important below. I've included links to the work of Dr. John Whitehall and links to Dr. Elizabeth Taylor's paper, as well as links to Safe Schools, links to some of the articles referenced here, and to some other criticisms of Safe Schools around the internet. So I do hope that you'll look into this. At the very least, please take a look at Dr. Elizabeth Taylor's research paper. It's all completely cited, it's got very good references throughout, So that gives you a really great starting place to look at what the issues are and to point you in the right direction to verify everything that she's saying. So if you had to start with just one of the links below, I absolutely recommend you start there.